So for our second lesson today, we're going to continue talking about the slope, which we were introduced to last class. And we recognized the slope is the steepness of a line, right? And we were talking about which hill do you want to toboggan on, which roller coaster do you want to go on, etc. So I made a little flow chart here just to show you how far we've come. We have learned 2 of the 4 ways to calculate slope. The first way that we learned to calculate the slope was when we have a graph, and we practice doing that quite a bit. So you take 2 points from a graph, you count the rise, you count the run, and then you divide those 2 numbers to get your final answer. We also know how to calculate the rate or the slope from a table of values. So remember, you pick 2 points on both sides, you subtract them, and then you divide the rise by the run. So of the 4 methods, we have learned 2. In today's class, we're going to be talking about how do we calculate the slope if I don't give you a graph, I don't give you a table of values, but I tell you what 2 points are on a line. So I'm telling you what 2 points are on a line, and then we're going to use this formula that I have over here, which you're going to memorize. So highlight it, put a star around it. Make sure you guys memorize this formula really, really well, because without it, you cannot do these questions. The formula is m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And by the way, there's a 4th way to calculate the slope, but that way we will learn after a few classes, so probably tomorrow. So cute. Some math. Okay, so here is the idea behind the formula. We're going to memorize the formula, but in case you're wondering, for every single one of these questions, I'm going to be giving you 2 points. One of the points we're going to label x1 and y1. The other point we're going to label x2 and y2. And the idea is, if again we're doing rise over run, you take the difference of your y's. So let's say this point, this is x1 and this is x2. To calculate the difference, we're just going to, it's y1 and y2. So let's say this point right here is y1 and this point right here is y2. To calculate this line, you just subtract these 2 numbers. And if this is x1 and this is x2, to calculate this line, we're just subtract those numbers. That's where we get this formula from. Okay. Now there are 4 different types of slopes. We've already kind of been talking about positive and negative, but I'll repeat it again. Whenever you're trying to figure out the slope of a line, you start all the way from the left, and then you run your finger across the line. And if the line goes up, it is a positive slope. Again, you start from the left and you run your finger down. And in this case, the line is going down, so it's negative. And here are 2 new ones that you may not have learned before. And they are a horizontal line and a vertical line. So when you have, sorry, my program is just giving me some issues. When you have a horizontal line, how do I remember this is horizontal? Well, you know how people talk about like the horizon and the sun is setting at the horizon? Just think of horizon, horizontal, this way. When you have a horizontal line, the slope is going to be 0, and we're going to investigate that today. And when you have a vertical line, how do I remember the word vertical? Well, when you talk about someone climbing Mount Everest or something really high, they talk about what was their height, how far up vertical did they go? So vertical is always up. That slope is undefined. Okay, so we're going to do a question with each one of these examples, and then there are a bunch of textbook questions that you're going to try today. So question number 1 says, find the slope of the line that passes through the points S, which is 2, 1, and T, which is 6, 9. And remember, we're not going to be solving this by graphing. So I'm not even going to graph it. I'm going to use the graph to check my answer at the end. I'm going to use algebra. Sorry, do you mind getting that? Thank you, Dante. So my 2 points, I'm just going to rewrite them here, are 2, 1 and 6, 9. And I'm going to label one of the points x1 and y1. And I'm going to label the other point x2 and y2. Now, it really doesn't matter which one you call 1 and 2. You could have called this one x1 and y1 and this one x2 and y2. However, what you're not allowed to do is mix and match them. You can't call this x1 and y2 and x2 and y1. You are not allowed to do that. You have to be consistent. If you call one of them 1, you make sure to call the other letter 1 as well. Also, why do we call them X and Y? Well, you know, when we're doing the coordinates, the first one on the left-hand side is always your X. It tells you how much to go side to side. And the second one is always your Y. It tells you how much to go up and down. So X and Y are always there. And then you call one of the points 1, the other point 2. It doesn't matter if you switch them around. Okay. Now I'm going to always start off by writing my slope equation, which is m is equal to y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. How did I get this? I memorized it from my slope equation. So make sure you memorize this exactly as it is. Don't mess up the minus signs, don't mess up the numbers and any of that stuff. It has to be written exactly as it is. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to start subbing in the values from these points into this equation. So which one of these numbers is my y2? Jiven? Good. So see in this spot right here, I'm going to write 9. Then I'm going to put the subtraction sign. Which one of these numbers represents y1? Jiven? Good. So right here, I'm going to put down a 1. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing with my x's. So which one of these numbers represents x2? You just say it out loud. Yep, it's just going to be a 6. Then the minus sign. And then which one of these numbers represents the x1? 2. Good. That's not too bad, right? Okay, now we're just going to subtract these numbers and see what we get. I'm just going to move all of this stuff up. So 9 take away 1 is 8. 6 take away 2 is 4. And this is going to be a 2. So this tells me I have a slope of positive 2. And you know what? I'm just going to rewrite this up here just so that you can clearly see my slope is equal to 2. So this is how you solve for slope using algebra. This is how you use math. But let's just check our work and try to see if it's actually correct. Here's how we're going to check our work. I'm going to plot these points on the graph. Fabi, do you mind getting that? I know your leg is a little off, but I don't want to pause this recording. Okay, so I'm going to put these 2 points onto my graph and let's see what I get. So we have 2, 1, which is this point right here. And we have 6, 9, which is this point right here. So go ahead and just put those down. This is your letter S and this is your letter T. And I'm going to go ahead and make a line going through both of them. Okay, I'll pause here so you guys can catch up. Hi, Neela. Sorry, we lost our Zoom. Okay, so now from our graph, in order for us to check our solution, we are going to use rise over run. So I'm going to take the 2 points that I can very clearly see on this graph, and I'm going to do what we have been doing all throughout, which is make our our little rectangle. Yep. And in this case, because every single one of these boxes is equal to 1, it's pretty easy. We're just going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So our rise is 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Our run is 4. And I'm just going to come over here. So from a graph, all we need to do is slope is equal to rise over run, which in this case is 8/4, and it's going to be a 2. So this confirms that the answer you get from your graph is the same answer as you get using algebra. And by the way, it's a positive 2 because the line is going upwards. How do you feel about that example? Good? Okay, we're going to do 3 more. So if you didn't get it now, you will get it by the 3rd one. On to example number 2. This time we're going to be drawing a negative slope. So you know your line is now going to be going downwards. First, we're going to use the algebraic method, this new formula that we've learned, and then we'll confirm our answer by drawing it on the graph and checking to see if we're right. So I'm just going to rewrite these points. This time I have a couple of negative numbers, but that's okay. So we have -5, 4 and 3, -1. So again, we know the first is always x and the second number is always y, x and y. And then it doesn't matter which pair you call 1, as long as you're consistent. So if I put a 1 here, I'm going to put a 1 here. If I put a 2 here, I'm going to put a 2 here. We write our formula. M is equal to, oh, you know what? I'm going to be very smart and I'm just going to copy and paste it from there just so I don't have to struggle. Look at that, genius. Pure genius. Okay, you do have to be careful when you have negative signs though, okay? So we're going to use a lot of brackets. You can just say this out loud. Which one of those numbers represents y2? Good, so I'm going to write -1. Well, then you have to put the subtraction sign from the formula, and then the number represents y1? 4, this number right here. So it's just going to be a 4. You see it? Oh. Which one of these numbers represents x2? 3, thank you. The subtraction sign from the formula. Now be very careful. Which one of these numbers represents x1? So we have to put both of the negative signs. This negative sign is part of the formula. This -5 is part of the number. And that's why whenever you're dealing with negatives, you have to be super careful because you will have situations where you have double negatives. So y2 is -1 minus y1 is just a 4. And then x2 is 3 minus x1 is -5. Luckily, we probably all remember our integer rules really, really well and are like experts at this. Yes, good. What is -1 minus 4? I'll remind you, same sign, you add the numbers and you keep the sign. -5 is correct. Okay, so you skipped a step, which is fine, but I'm just going to write down all the steps in case someone needs it. So now I'm going to go ahead and I see a very illegal activity taking place because I have 2 double negatives. So I need to clean up those signs and I'm going to make it 3 plus 5. Do you guys remember this rule? When you have 2 double negatives like this, you can't have that, so you have to clean up the signs? Okay, good. If you don't remember them, make sure you review integer rules. Okay, we're going to keep going. It's going to be -5/8. And that's our final answer. We can't really do anything else with it. So actually, I'm going to rewrite it a little bit nicer since we're not calculating anything else. It's going to be m is equal to -5/8. This is our slope. That's our final answer. When we have 2 points, we use this formula. But just for fun, let's go ahead and check our solution. We're going to do the same thing as before. We're going to graph it. We're going to do rise over run, and we're going to see if we can get the same answer as we got over here. Okay, so -5, 4 is right here. 3, -1 is right over here. Connect those 2 points. using a ruler. By the way, for your scatter plots and stuff, a lot of you guys were not using rulers. Please make sure you get a ruler for this unit. Doesn't even have to be a ruler. If you want, you could just use like a card or something, but make sure it's a straight edge. If you draw like a hand-drawn line, you will absolutely lose marks every single time. Okay, I'm gonna make my little triangle. And my rise is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units here. My run is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 units here. So I'm just going to finish it off by using my formula, which is slope is equal to rise over run. And in this case, your rise is 5, your run is 8. And because it is a line going down, it's going to be -5 over 8. And I just want to make it super clear when we're doing this, we're just checking our work. So obviously we already have our answer. We're just making sure to see if it's correct. And that's a good way whenever you're done a question. And if you have extra time, just go back and check to see if you got it right on it. Okay, so now just to remind you guys, a horizontal line, I told you the rule up here, we expect the slope to be 0, but I'm going to prove it to you now with actual math and actual algebra. So let's go to our example. We have find the slope of the line that passes through the points 1, 7 and 9, 7. The steps are the same. We label our x and y coordinates, x and y, x and y. And you call one of them the ones and the other one the twos. So I'm going to call these ones 1 and 1, and I'm going to call this 2 and 2. We always start off with the formula, which is going to be this one right here. M is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. If you guys memorize this incorrectly and you accidentally put like addition signs and stuff, you will always get the answer wrong. So really, really important to make sure you memorize it like in its correct form. Okay, so again, you can just yell out the answer. When I ask it, which one of these numbers represents the y2? 7 minus which one of these numbers represents the y1? Try again. Yep, it's 7 again. Do you see why it's 7? So remember, it's y2, this number here, minus y1, which is this number here. You see it? Okay, good. And then x2, what's your x2? Good. Minus 1. Okay. 7 take away 7 is 0. 9 take away 1 is 8. Do you guys know the rule when you have a number that is a 0 at the top? Yeah, it's like saying I have 8 slices of pizza. I'm not giving any of them out. So how much pizza will I have? It's just going to be a 0. So when the number at the top is a 0, it's just the slope is a 0. Let's confirm this just by drawing out the line. So we're going to have here. So 1, 7 is up here. 9, 7 is up here. And draw a straight line. Okay, so our check is going to be slope is equal to rise over run. Now, if I were to draw a triangle here, how much is the rise from between this point and this point? How much am I going up or down? Anything? No, so it's just going to be 0 over, and let's say the run between these 2 points is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8, which means our slope is just going to be 0. This is a flat ground. If you're going tobogganing, it has no steepness, right? It's just a horizontal flat ground. It's not steep at all. So that's why the slope is 0. All right, last question, vertical line. Just a reminder, when we looked at this graph, a vertical line has something called an undefined slope. Let's talk about what that means. So hopefully by the 4th example, you guys know what to do. We're going to take our 2 points and label them x1 and y1 and x2 and y2. Formula is going to be, oh yeah, I'm just going to copy and paste that. Oh, I ruined everything. There we go. Okay, and let's go ahead and start to put our values in. So it's going to be, y2 is going to be, good, minus y1. Excellent. And then x2 minus x1, 3. So when you reduce this, -4 minus 5, different signs, same signs, add the number and keep the sign. So it's going to be -9 over 0. Are you allowed to have a fraction where the number is 0? It's kind of like saying I'm giving 9 slices of pizza, but I have no slices of pizza available. Is that even possible? It's not possible. If you were to put this into your calculator, you would get an error, and this is what we consider to be undefined. And so just make sure you know the difference. A horizontal line has a 0 slope, but a vertical line has an undefined slope. When the 0 is at the top, the answer is a 0, but when the answer is at the 0 is at the bottom, it's undefined. All right, to just finish off this question and check our answer, let's go ahead and draw it. So we have 3, 5, and then we have 3, -4. So you can see it's a vertical line. It's a line that just goes straight up and down. Okay, and then if we were to do our check using the graph, I would say that we have, oh, this is like weird. Let's see how this one looks. Oh, it looks like a dirty something. So in this example, what's our rise between these 2 points? It's about 9. Okay, but do we have a run? Does our triangle go side to side? No. So 9 over 0, which means our slope is undefined. I need everyone to read the hilarious comic and laugh. What's that? Well, then it doesn't really matter because the answer will still be undefined. And I know when we're on break, you guys can play and stuff, but right now we're not on break. So for the next half hour, you're going to start page 399, numbers 1 to 30, 39 to 48, 49 to 53. Get really, really, really good at using this formula.